Hi everyone, and thank you for attending this Meet FinTrU Switch to a Career in KYC webinar. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for joining us today. It's great to see so many people have dialed in. I really do thank you for giving up this portion of your lunch, especially with this summer that's just arrived in the last week or so. My name's Graham Allen, and I'm a Senior Vice President here at FinTrU, working on a KYC engagement with a Tier 1 investment bank. Now, I joined FinTrU back in February of 2018. After spending over 11 years working in various back and middle office roles across investment banking operations for 2 global investment banks across multiple locations in the UK and Ireland. Over my time at FinTrU, I've seen a rapid expansion, both in Belfast and the Northwest, and now further afield. The goal of this event is to give you an insight into making the switch from operations to a career in KYC. And through the course of the next 30 minutes, you're going to hear from a panel of FinTrU KYC professionals who'll give you an insight into their career journeys and how they made the switch from operational roles into KYC. Now, in a moment, I'll introduce you to the panel, consisting of Kyle Gawley, Jenny McClelland, and Gemma Hughes. But before we do that, I'd like to encourage you to use the chat function to submit any questions that you have, and we'll really do our best to come to them in our Q&A session at the end. And importantly, I'd like to stress this point: all questions remain anonymous. Now, without further ado, we'll move on to today's panel. Kyle, could you give us a brief introduction to yourself and your career at FinTrU?
Thanks, Graham. Yes, my name's Kyle Gawley. I'm a senior associate here at FinTrU, having joined the company in August 2017. Prior to joining FinTrU, I had 6 years experience working in financial services. So I started off in retail banking, where I spent 3 years working in various operations roles. After that, I made the move to a Tier 1 investment bank, where I also spent 3 years working in both operations and compliance. I'm currently a team manager here at FinTrU based in our Belfast office, and I'm currently working on a KYC refresh project for a global Tier 1 investment bank.
Great, thank you, Kyle. Now, Jenny, could you share a bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Jenny and I joined FinTrU in December 2019 as an associate based in the Northwest office. Prior to joining FinTrU, I have worked in banking and operations roles in different global organisations. I had no previous KYC knowledge before joining the company. However, I now work on a KYC project for a Tier 1 investment bank.
Thank you, Jenny. Now, Gemma, same question over to yourself.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Gemma. I joined FinTrU in April 2020, so it was just over a year ago, and it was right at the start of the pandemic. I actually have a degree in English literature and history from Northumbria. So my background hasn't always been business or financial services. In fact, it's very much the opposite. After university, I ended up working for a large financial services company in operations, and that was for 3 years. It was a remediation project which was based heavily around calculations. I knew it was time for a change and professional growth, and I'd heard so many positive reviews of FinTrU and realised fairly quickly that it was the place for me. I had absolutely no KYC experience at all coming into this role, but I am also working as an associate on a KYC project for a Tier 1 US investment bank.
Thank you, Gemma, and thank you, panel. I'm sure everybody on the line is really looking forward to starting to get drilled into the questions. So without further ado, I'm going to move on to the questions that I have for the panel. Kyle, I'm coming to you first. Could you describe the opportunities that you've had to develop your career at FinTrU?
Graham, I mean, for me, the opportunities of FinTrU have been and are endless. I mean, from a personal perspective, I was lucky to be promoted to senior associate within 18 months of joining the company. Since then, I've transitioned from working solely as a KYC analyst to a team manager, overseeing 11 direct reports and a work stream of upwards of 30 people. I think for me, where FinTrU differs from previous companies I've worked for is there's a very clear pathway for progression. And I mean, that to me is from day one when somebody comes in, maybe as a junior analyst, right to the very top of the corporate ladder. The company's model as well also differentiates from a number of our main competitors. I mean, at FinTrU, just at present, I mean, we've opportunities to currently work with 15 different clients, and that's across various jurisdictions and products, and with, as the guys have already said, with global Tier 1 investment banks. the company's journey, for anybody that's followed it over the past few years, has been incredible. I mean, we continue to see growth in Northern Ireland across both the Belfast and Northwest sides, which at times, to be honest, for me, you know, coming in when the company was quite small, the growth and how we've managed to maintain it and exceed our targets has just absolutely blown me away. This year, we've also announced our expansion to the US, which, as you can imagine, is extremely exciting for everyone involved with the company moving forward. I mean, FinTrU for a number of years now have spoken of a commitment to put local talent on a global stage, and I think this expansion provides a pathway for many talented individuals to avail that opportunity and to prove that that's more than just words. I mean, I think personally, if I wasn't a married man with children, I think I'd most certainly be looking to spread my wings to the US for a bit, but I'll have to be Belfast for the foreseeable future for myself.
That's great. Thanks to hear, Kyle. I think you and I both falling into that bracket, unfortunately. So now moving on to Jenny. Jenny, as you said earlier, you joined FinTrU in December of 2019, and you're actually part of a rapid expansion up in the Northwest. How's your FinTrU experience been over the past 18 months?
Yeah, so thank you, Graham. So as you said there, I joined FinTrU in December 2019. So I had a few short months in the office before we were instructed, obviously, to work from home. So in terms of support and development at FinTrU, when I joined the company, I had very little KYC knowledge, as I touched on earlier, which really wasn't an issue, as there was a structured training plan set out for me to allow me to build on this. Another positive for me was being able to reach out to anyone at any level if I had any questions without feeling silly, which is always really reassuring. I still ask questions nearly 2 years down the line, and the help is always there. As well as this, the opportunities for progression are endless, as Kyle just covered. I always wanted to people manage, and this was a goal for myself whenever I started my role in FinTrU. I am now responsible for 9 analysts, having never managed before in any of my previous roles. From the top level down, everyone is extremely friendly, and not only that, your own personal and professional development is at the forefront, and if you have ambition and want to progress, then you're fully supported and encouraged to do so. In terms of working from home, it has really been a seamless transition, and it's crazy how we have adapted so well. We are more in touch than ever before. We have daily huddles, regular touch points throughout the day, as well as a weekly team meeting. As well as this, we have our virtual events, which have been really fun. FinTrU culture really does play a big role. It is essentially the glue that keeps us all together, especially whenever we're working on different projects. We actually also have a FinTrU summer party coming up at the end of this month as well, which we're all really looking forward to.
Great, thank you, Jenny. And thank you also for reminding me of the FinTrU summer party coming up. I, for one, also cannot wait for that one. So now, last but certainly not least, Gemma, and coming to yourself now. I think I can talk for everyone on the line that we've all become accustomed to working from home over the last year. However, unlike many people, you actually joined FinTrU during the pandemic. Could you describe your experience of switching careers and joining us remotely?
Yeah, so I did indeed. It is safe to say the pandemic has been fairly hard on everyone. I was definitely worried that joining a new company and starting a completely new role from my little makeshift office at home would be fairly overwhelming. However, I think I've received so much training and support, and it's more than I could have asked for, actually. There's a new joiner training experience, and from the very start it is seamless, and you never feel like you're on your own. The plan that's put in place for the new joiners is great for meeting those that you're working with, also for getting a good understanding of what FinTrU is like as a whole company and what your future could look like within FinTrU. Now, after my interview and job offer, I was in constant communication with the company about how things would run, got everything delivered to me straight to my house, and there was absolutely no issues with it at all. In terms of actually meeting people I work with, although it has been virtual, it doesn't actually feel like I've missed out on anything. So between virtual welcome drinks, coffee catch-ups over Teams, there's lunch and learns, Zumba classes, virtual beer and cheese tasting. It really does feel like I've become part of the company, and I've met some amazing people that one day soon, hopefully, I will see in the office.
That's great, thank you, Gemma. The only thing I'd like to add to that was the virtual whisky tasting, which I took part in, which I would fully recommend. So now it's time to move on to my favourite section, which is the Q&A section. I'd like to just briefly remind everyone on the line, it's not too late to use the chat function to submit any further questions. And again, I'd just really like to stress that point that all questions remain anonymous. We've also received a number of questions throughout this session so far. And while I work through them in the background here, I'll share this one question, which was submitted earlier this week via Eventbrite. The question from Eventbrite is, why do ops people make good KYC professionals? What skills are transferable between the roles? Kyle, could I ask you to take this one, please?
Certainly can, Graham. Look, in my experience, I find that ops professionals are generally very well organised. I mean, I think with working in ops roles as well, you're naturally going to have experience of working to very tight deadlines and know how to prioritise your work and manage your day effectively. I mean, I think when a lot of individuals, myself included in this, move from an ops role to KYC, they maybe envision that they're going to be moving to a slower paced role. I mean, only really focusing on investigation of financial crime issues. I mean, however, I can definitely confirm that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, whilst the role is investigative in nature and it's a key element of a client's overall AML program, a KYC analyst would work on a much higher pace with a higher volume of clients than a member of some of the bank's compliance teams, for example, would. Obviously, as part of the role, you know, it's vital that when we're looking into our clients, that we're conducting thorough analysis, you know, of ownership structures, control persons, how they generate their revenue, etc. But it's also important that we focus on our throughput as well. I mean, we need to ensure that the assigned populations we get from our clients are refreshed in line with their given deadlines. I mean, as already touched on, I mean, we're working with global tier one investment banks. I mean, these clients that we're partnering with, they have extremely large populations of clients that, as I say, require refresh to very tight regulatory deadlines. It's up to us to deliver that. It's up to us to get it done on time. And I mean, if this isn't done, it can have very serious implications for the client. You know, just some examples of things it could lead to would be regulatory fines, reputational damage, and ultimately loss of their client's business and revenue. So I think having an ops mindset, in my opinion, helps analysts strike the balance of getting things done and also getting them done right. I think working with ops professionals, they don't tend to just focus on one area. I think they're very often keen to think outside the box for solutions and look for opportunities to improve efficiency throughout the process as opposed to just one part of it.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for that answer. So moving on to the submitted questions from the people on the line here. The first question on the list is, what is it like switching to a new career in KYC from an operational role? I think anybody on the line could answer this one, but I'm happy to take this question today. So at FinTrU, we're always looking for the right people with the right mindset who can hit the ground running. And what we found historically is that people coming from an operations background bring a really good mix of energy and resilience and just this hunger and desire to succeed. One thing I'd like to get across today is it's just really important to note that you don't need to be a KYC expert to join us. In fact, I think a message I'd like to display today is that's quite the opposite. If you bring the right attitude, we've got a dedicated KYC training team who can teach you, pretty much anything. And they're on hand to provide tailored training before you take up a KYC role, and they're available for any questions that come up along the way. At FinTrU as well, one thing that I've noticed since switching to FinTrU from working for different banks is the ongoing support and encouragement for development of our people, and that's firmly in place in line with our company values. We support all of our staff through all levels in gaining industry recognised qualifications. That's pertinent both to development in KYC, but also your ongoing career development as you continue to grow within the organisation. I think we've got time for a few more submitted questions, so I do see I have had a few coming in here while I work through them. So the first one I'll pick up here is one that I'm going to ask Gemma to answer, and that question is, what support is provided to make the move into KYC?
Yeah, so as I had said previously, I had no experience at all in KYC, and I knew very little about what my exact role would entail prior to joining FinTrU. But I knew straight away from the new joiner training that I talked about before that it wasn't really about how much you knew or what you did know. It was about your transferable skills and how you actually approach certain topics that are put in front of you. There's also a huge emphasis on settling into the company and finding your feet before you just crack on with that KYC work. So you do feel more comfortable, even though it may all be new to you, you do get to settle in pretty well first. Now, once I was on my project, the training I was given was absolutely top class. I remember thinking I just could not believe how nice everyone was and how keen everyone was to help, because we all know that's not always the case. For me, we had buddy systems, training calls, shadowing, one-to-ones, and that's just a few of the benefits I personally received. But there's also the KYC training expert in place for anyone that's joining fresh to KYC, or even for the likes of myself, if I just wanted a refresher on anything, I could go straight to the KYC training expert. I think overall, the main thing that I've taken away from the past year is that there's always someone that can help you. No matter how silly you think the question is, I just ask it anyway.
Happy days. Thank you, Gemma. I'd really like to stress that last point that you made. It's very, very important. It's something we encourage everybody who joins. Please never be afraid to ask a question. I think the people that we have on the line today are certainly not afraid of asking questions, and I'm trying to kind of collate them as they come in. One question I think I can maybe cover off that'll kind of amalgamate a few questions that come in here, and I'm going to ask Jenny to answer this one. So a general theme of some of the questions coming in: how do you see the transition back into the office?
Overall, I see a really smooth, seamless transition as we move back to the office, and that's based on the experience throughout the last year. We have managed to stay more connected than ever despite working from home. As FinTrU operates over multiple sites, I believe that we will be returning to the office with even better communication skills as we have adapted to using technology to keep in touch. It really has been seamless, and I think that it's made us even more connected than before, which is a real positive. We have also invested in more office space and technology, which is extremely exciting, and it shows that we are continuing to see major growth despite the current situation.
Jenny, thank you very much. And I think if time allows, I'm going to pick one more question from the bank of questions that's come in today. Question is, and I think in fairness, it's probably my turn, and I'll answer this one. Is there a big difference from moving from a large investment bank into FinTrU with regards to company culture? I think I can talk for pretty much anybody who's worked for one or more large investment bank that there is a large change and transition when you come to FinTrU with regards to how we actually live our culture. That is one thing that I really noticed when I joined, the focus on our charity days, the focus on our societies, and really the focus on our people is second to none and is completely different to any organisation I've ever worked for. So I think I can say an answer to that is yes, there is a big difference, and yes, it's actually a very good difference. Finally, to round up, I'd like to ask each of the panel one final question. It's going to be the same question to each of the panel. And Kyle, I'm going to come to you first. Why should someone make the switch from operations to KYC with FinTrU?
For me, Graham, personally, I think it's the opportunities for career progression. I know I've touched on them a bit already, but I really do believe they are endless. I mean, in all honesty, when I left my previous role to join FinTrU, I was a little apprehensive. I was leaving a tier 1 investment bank to join what was then a relatively small local company. I think obviously the growth over the past few years has been clear, and we've touched on that. But from my personal perspective, I can honestly say it's the best decision I ever made. I mean, not only has the company gone from strength to strength in that period, I personally have been given more opportunities in my 4 years at FinTrU than the previous 6 years of my career, where, as I say, I was working for larger, more established companies. I think it sort of ties into your point there on the difference in the culture. I think at both my previous roles, both previous companies I worked for, at times I was made to feel like nothing more than a number. there was never any clarity, any sort of clear clarity anyway, as to how it was possible to reach the next level, what you had to do. And at times it just felt like I'd reached a bit of a glass ceiling, to be honest. I think FinTrU as a company, they definitely value their employees as individuals. I mean, they'll work to their strengths and provide that clear roadmap for progression. I mean, as I say, from day one when you join this company, the team were able to outline to you your potential journey throughout the various corporate levels, and also highlight to you the support structure that they have in place to help you achieve that. You mentioned it there, and it's also very well documented now how the company does encourage and support professional development away from BAU. Many employees, including myself, are currently being supported to complete external accredited qualifications specific to their role and career aspirations. And that, I mean, that doesn't even necessarily have to be directly aligned to what you're doing at the minute. You know, there's so many different opportunities over there, from KYC and compliance qualifications, risk management qualifications, and what I'm doing myself at the minute, a qualification in project management. So I think it's very clear the company is doing a lot for their people, and I can only speak on behalf of myself and my team and say that it's an excellent place to be.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Jenny, same question, over to you.
So why should someone make the switch to KYC with FinTrU? Well, I think that the Northwest is really becoming a hub for financial services, and it is really exciting to see the growth and expansion here. Whenever I graduated, I searched for a role in the Northwest like this and found it extremely difficult to find. So having this right on my doorstep is something that I am extremely grateful for. It's great that we now have these amazing opportunities here and no longer need to go further afield to look for an exciting career path, such as a KYC role at FinTrU. FinTru's vision is to inspire global trust in tomorrow, and that is exactly what they do, inspire people every day to better themselves. So I would say to anyone thinking about making the move, do not hesitate, do it. I only wish I had made the move sooner.
Thank you, Jenny. I think that kind of final message you made is something that definitely hits home with myself as well. And Gemma, final to yourself.
Yeah, so I completely agree with what the other guys have said. For me, moving into KYC from a role in operations while working from home during a pandemic was a bit daunting, mostly because it was all brand new. But I didn't need to be worried about that, as the training was great, and so are the opportunities that come from being within FinTrU. I've touched on it before, but the people and the culture of FinTrU as a whole is what gets you up in the morning and gets you excited to start work. For me, I couldn't believe how much there actually was to get involved in. So there are committees, there are clubs, there are tons of social events, fitness challenges, summer and Christmas parties, and that is a tiny list of what goes on outside your daily work stream. I'd be here all day if I was listing them. So to me, it actually seems that there has been so much extra care that has gone into making working from home as enjoyable and as interactive as it would have been in the office. Everyone does get a chance to be involved from that immediate day one start. And it's such a good way of making those connections and friends with others, even though you haven't actually met yet in the flesh. For me, though, it is the people that I work with is what makes it. So whether it's in my project or outside of my project, I mean, 1 minute I could be having a cup of tea with a colleague on Teams, and the next I could be having, say, a career progression meeting with the COO. I mean, as I keep saying, everyone is just so lovely, and it really is actually quite nice to see how involved the senior management are and how helpful everyone is, especially to those that are relatively new, which I would consider myself to be. There is so much to throw yourself into within FinTrU, and I am loving my new role in KYC. But I must say, the social events are pretty good.
Thank you, Gemma. And kind of one point I would just like to kind of focus in on that you made there, and surprisingly it's not going to be the social events, because I think we all know they're pretty good by now, is the visibility of the senior management at the corporate levels is second to none in any organisation I've ever worked for. So bringing us to a close, I'd like to thank everybody for attending today, especially during lunch and especially during our newfound summer. And I'm really sorry, a lot of questions came in today and we just weren't able to get to all of them. Please do feel free to submit any questions that you do have that we've not answered today to careers@fintru.com, and the team there will get back to you on that as soon as they possibly can. As I said earlier, we have and we continue to have some great opportunities here at FinTrU, both for people with existing KYC experience and, as discussed in today, those coming from a background in investment banking operations. More information can be found on all of our open roles on our website at fintru.com/careers. If you want to be kept up to date with the latest career opportunities with FinTrU, please sign up to our email newsletter, and the link to that can be found on our careers webpage. Finally, thank you again for attending. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.